Hey, welcome to this episode on how to carve a spoon. Today we're going to take this piece of Rocky Mountain juniper and using a few different carving techniques and just some simple hand tools, we're going to hopefully create a beautiful spoon by the end of the day that we can enjoy for years to come. So let's go ahead and get to the process and I'll talk you through it as we go. So here's the tools that I'm going to be using to carve out my spoon today. I have a knife, a handsaw, a gouge, some oil to oil it at the end, and some sandpaper to get it all smooth. As well as my blank of Rocky Mountain juniper. This is just a piece of a dead limb cut off. And so it's completely dry on the inside, but it has a little bit of cracking that's occurring on the very outer parts. So I think I'm going to take off a little bit on each side and get the best middle section out of this. Okay, so I have all the bark off my spoon blank now, and I'm thinking with this spoon I kind of want to have a nice curve in it, and I typically like to make my spoons a little bit on the skinnier side. So obviously when you think about a spoon and you look at this, there's a lot of material that needs to be removed, and so I'm going to use a technique called planing, which will help me remove a lot of material really quick. Okay, so I'm going to use this log right here as the foundation for my planing. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to take my knife, and with the blade facing away from me, I'm going to put it into the wood, and then using my spoon blank for just a second, I'm going to billet this knife into the wood to where it feels stable, and then using my non-dominant hand I can hold there, and then by angling my piece of wood on that knife and pulling against it, I'm able to take off large pieces of wood relatively quickly. One key thing is I just want to make sure my fingers never get in front of that blade for obvious reasons. I'm going to call it with the planing for now, and it did its job. It took off a lot of material. The spoon's starting to take shape. We got our bowl over here. We'll have our swooping handle over on this end. But I'm going to go ahead now and introduce a couple new techniques to get me to the next stage of this spoon. And so one of them is going to be just a standard power stroke. And this is using my upper body as well as my arms in conjunction and using a little bit of a twisting motion to take off material. And that can be helpful because it's using a little bit of your upper body, taking some weight off your arms, and allows you to go longer and take off more material. The other technique that I'm going to use here is a technique where I'm actually carving towards myself, but I'm just using my wrists. So by securing my spoon to my chest like this, I can come down to the far end and just using my wrist in this kind of a motion and using my knife in a sweeping motion, so it's really slicing the wood, I'm able to keep everything really controlled and get angles that are really useful to help get the spoon shape out of this piece of wood. So I'm just going to use those now, and I'm going to carve for a little while and see where I get to. So the spoon's really starting to look like a spoon now, and I'm going to start getting to a little bit more of the detail stuff. and I'm going to use a few different techniques that allow for that. So the first and main one that I'm going to be using now is using a thumb stroke. So some of these areas here around the bowl where I want really small, kind of fine cuts, where I'm really kind of getting detail and shaping things out, I can place my knife where I want it, and just by pushing my thumb on the spine of that knife, I'm able to be really precise about where I'm removing material. So now I'm going to begin the process of gouging out my spoon. And so I'm just going to use this little gouge here and slowly work my way into this piece of wood bit by bit, and keeping my spoon here flat on the ground. Alright, so now I have my bowl cut out, and I'm going to begin the process of carving even more detailed around that bowl. I notice I have a little crack opening up here. Hopefully it doesn't grow and get any worse, so I'll be extra careful around that tip. But now that I have my bowl carved out, I can really go for it and get to that finishing look with this spoon. I think I'm at a point now where I'm going to move on from carving. There's not much more I can take off this spoon without making it dangerously skinny. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it where it's at, and I'm going to move on to the next phase, which is sanding the spoon. So I have a bunch of different sandpaper right here, different grits. I have 60 grit, 100 grit, 150 grit, 220 and 350. And so I'm just going to take myself up in order of succession until I get to that 350, and that will give it a really nice polish and a really good finished look. And then I can oil it up and we'll be done with the spoon. So it's pretty exciting. We're getting to that point where it's just the finishing touches. Alright folks, here it is, the completed Rocky Mountain Juniper spoon. I'm pretty stoked with how it came out. It's just such a beautiful wood, it's hard to go wrong. Having that purple heartwood and that white sapwood, it just makes for a beautiful combination. Yeah, I just got done oiling it. I used a little bit of coconut oil in case you're curious. But if I didn't have that, I probably would go with something like a walnut oil. But yeah, this was really fun coming out in nature, carving a spoon with just simple tools. It was very meditative, and I feel good. So thank you all for giving me an excuse to come out here and do something fun like this. And look forward to the next episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you next time.